Dear Ahmed, I knew that I was going to change your life. I knew that as soon as I entered your old home in Baghdad. Your dad Maytham was holding your sister Maryam in the kitchen. Your mom Hannah was near the dryer. I found a place between them. You were away at your grandparents' home, so we didn't get to meet. You didn't know this at the time, but I was a dud missile, designed to destroy but not explode. I entered your home through the bathroom window, made my way through the walls of the kitchen cabinet, and sneaked through 3 natural gas canisters. You know those old school ones your mom used for cooking? I'm sorry for leaving gaping holes through each one. I was in a rush. Good thing your dad emptied them out 2 days before my visit. My life changed on July 25th, 2006. It was the first night I spent away from home. I thought I was the coolest little kid. The next day, my dad came to pick me up, and I immediately could sense that there was something off. You know, you can usually tell when there's something off with your parents. It's a look, it's a feeling, and I had that morning. But I didn't want to say anything, so we got in the car and we're driving home, and then we stopped at a red light, and then I summoned up my courage and asked, Baba, what's up? What's wrong? And he took one of those deep parental breaths, we all know them. And he said, Ahmed, our house was bombed last night. And as a kid, you don't really know what this means, right? You eat, you play, you sleep, and you do that all over again. You don't know tragedy. And that morning, I shook tragedy's hand for the very first time. A week later, we moved to Syria, to Aleppo, which was much safer at the time. And we lived there for a year and then moved to the coast of Syria, where we spent another year. And during these 2 years, we would go back and forth between Syria and Iraq and Baghdad, because my parents were civil engineers for about 24 years in Baghdad, and they were on paid leave. And so we would go back and forth to check in with family and to check in on work. And at the top of that second year, we had to make a choice. At the time, the Syrian economy wasn't very good. So do we stay in Syria and be safe but struggle financially, or do we go back to Iraq and risk our safety but be okay financially? So this was something that my parents had to struggle with and had to figure out. How do you make that choice? And during one of those trips back to Baghdad, my dad was talking to the bus driver. It's a long bus ride from Syria to Iraq. And the bus driver listened to my dad as he told him about our story, our dilemma, and this choice that we had to make soon. And then the bus driver said, hey, there's this UN program that was just launched. It's going to take approximately 1% of everyone that applied, and you'll either be relocated to the UK or the US, so you should apply. And my dad thought, okay, well, we don't really have anything to lose, and he applied. And then we did 6 months of interviews, and then we received a phone call. And I remember at the time I was in my bedroom, my mom was in the living room, and my dad wasn't home at the time. And all of a sudden, I hear my mom just screaming. And as a kid, when your mom starts screaming, you're like, oh my God, I did something wrong, or the world's ending. And so I run to the next room, and tears are streaming down her eyes. And I'm like, Mama, what happened? Did you find out that I did that thing last week? Or what's happening? And she puts the phone down, and she says, Ahmed, we have 4 one-way tickets to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And at the time, I thought, oh, America, I've seen that in the movies. Bruce Willis, come on now. I'm familiar with America. It's like a cab ride away. I have my toys here. Let's go. That was my thought. And then I started to realize as we were preparing, I was like, this stuff is not going to fit in a cab. This is probably a long trip. And so we landed in America on May 19th, 2008. I've been reading your articles. I've noticed that you mention me a lot, which first made me very uncomfortable. I'm not used to being recognized. I usually turn children like you and your sister into dust. When meeting new people, my palms tend to be bloody. Haven't you always wondered why your dad rarely spoke about me? He told you that tragedies always ended with a period. Yours ended with a semicolon. You moved on to great things, but I was still there, watching. Most tragedies never fully disappear. They share your breath, your blood, and walk around the ridges of your ribcage when they can't fall asleep. But you were different. For some reason, I couldn't live within you. I couldn't share your breath or your blood. You wouldn't let me. Maybe it's because you weren't there. I know that every night before you fall asleep, you ask yourself what would have happened if you were there to meet me. Over the past few years, I've been telling my family's story, but this was very, very difficult to do in the beginning. Sophomore year of high school, a family friend came over for dinner, and he said, "Hey, why don't you start writing about this story of yours? People might be interested." And at the time, as a teenager, you don't want to hear that you're different from people. You want to fit in. And at the time, I thought, no, my story, why me? Why is my story any different from anyone else's? But I thought, okay, all right, well, I'll give it a try. And then I put pen to paper, started writing. And then all of a sudden, this whole new world started opening up. And people came up to me and started asking me about the demographics that I represented. People came up to me asking, what does it mean to be a refugee? What does it mean to be Muslim? What does it mean to be from Iraq? And here I am in the middle of these two worlds. I exist in between them, the Iraqi one and the American one, and I have access to both. And at any time, I could go from here to here, but most of the time in the middle, not knowing which one to go to. But that's what the writing was about. That's what it helped me figure out. How do I use my identity to help other people who may be going through something similar to me? And so I started writing. It turned into poetry, essays, photos, and then it turned into a small blog, and then people really started to pay attention, and to be honest, I loved the attention. But then I thought, okay, well, this is good, but this is just for me. How can I give that to other people? So junior year rolled around, and I decided to start Narratio. Narratio is an online platform for youth empowerment through creative expression. We publish poetry, art, photography, and stories of youth from all over the world. We have over 40 contributors from over 13 countries that submit on a regular basis, all around the idea that we're united by our differences just as much as we are by our similarities. And fast forward to last year, I was hanging out with a friend of mine. He said, "Hey, you have to check this out. I have this new VR headset, and there's this new video I found, and I think you would enjoy it." And I thought, okay, let's try it. And I sit down on the couch, put on the headset, and he plays the video. And all of a sudden, I was transported across the world to Greece to a refugee camp. I was in the back of a pickup truck, and there were refugee teenagers right next to me. We're on our way to work. I had to take off the headset after 30 seconds, and I just went to my room. And I started to think, why am I on this side? Why am I not with them? What makes me different? Why am I here? I started to feel guilty. Why was I the one here in America? But as I kept thinking about it, I realized, this guilt wasn't serving anyone. And so I decided to turn that guilt into responsibility and to try and empower that demographic in any way that I can. And so I started to think about the tragedy. I started to think about the bomb. And I thought, how can I fully understand this and help others do the same? And then it just hit me out of nowhere. And if there's one thing you can take away from this talk, it's this question, this inquiry. What if we rewrote the narrative from the perspective of the thing that hurt us the most? If your tragedy spoke, what would it tell you? What will you learn? This picture was lost for about 11 years. We found it 2 months ago going over some old luggage. And the last time I saw this, I was very, very young. This is the month after the bomb hit the home. And this shows its route. And when I saw it at the time, it was part of our UN file. So it was just documentation. And as a kid, you don't really know, you don't know what it meant. So I thought, okay, well, this is just some picture of this thing that happened. And today, at this moment in time, this is the first time I've ever shown any pictures of the bomb in public. I see this as an opportunity. I'm thankful for this. I appreciate it every single day because it's a reminder of a responsibility, of empowering myself by empowering the people around me. It's a reminder of the Iraqi side of things, good and bad. And it's a reminder of the individuals that I'm privileged to represent and the individuals that have helped me get to this point. Right now, my grandmother is watching from Baghdad. So, hi, Yom. And this is for her and for everyone else that helped me get to this point. But one thing that's important to note here is that this isn't a unique story, per se. There are many like mine, and I don't want mine to be the main one. I don't want to be the exception. I want to be the rule. I'm writing to thank you. Thank you for using me for good. Know that my body changes locations without my permission. I don't enjoy meeting new people. I don't relish in the destruction. I'm designed to collect breaths and keep them to myself. No matter which side I'm on, this purpose never changes. Us bombs never get to choose who to visit. You came back to visit me 2 years ago. You didn't see my body, of course. That was long gone. But you saw the window in the bathroom where I first introduced myself. It was now fixed. But I was still there. You were alone, and the rest of your family was outside. You took out your phone to take a picture of me, but you were out of storage. You laughed at the irony. You put your phone down and stared at me. And I stared back. You smiled and walked away. And in that moment, I realized that your survival is my only salvation. Thank you very much.